This is part 3 in our series with Julio Franca on the trends that will affect the next generation of supply chains. So Julio, can you again provide a brief background of yourself?
Sure. As an academic background, I am a naval engineering, then I did a master in finance. So I see supply chain from a financial perspective quite often. Then a few years ago, I did an MBA in Holland. I spent half of my career as an executive in a big manufacturer, food and personal care manufacturer, and then the other half as a management consultant. I'm currently leading Spin Consulting, www.spinconsulting.net. We are small specialized supply chain procurement consultants with a real strong focus on delivering value, fast, tangible, and sustainable over time. Once again, thanks for listening. We're going to go through the next and to the final 4 trends of supply chain for the future.
Thanks. And in this third interview, this is part 3 of our series about the top 10 issues affecting the next generation of supply chains. Last time you discussed issues 4, 5, and 6. What would you say are the next 4 issues in order of importance?
Well, the first, trend 7, I would say it goes around segmentation. So micro-segmentation is going to become more and more key to success. Then trend 8 it goes around technology, which will support supply chain management, will primarily be on the TAP. Then trend 9, it's the leaders are going to leverage social media to close the loop in terms of feedback in the supply chains. And trend 10 is then artificial intelligence will be embedded in the end-to-end supply chain activities of supply chain.
Can you please explain what each issue is and why is it important? And what can be done to effectively address these 3 issues?
Well, let's start with trend 7, which is goes around segmentation. So I start by posing questions. So do you have a detailed knowledge of your individual consumer or customer segments or your micro-segments? Very rarely companies reply to this as a yes. So to be honest, the answer to most companies would be a no. A micro-segmentation or micro-segment is defined as that exact part of the general buying category that triggers the purchasing decision. Not the category itself, but that small part of the category. So let's to illustrate that. Let's start with smartphone accessory. We discovered that this manufacturer company had several underserved microsegments in the smartphone segment. Specifically, the design of your own assembly, your own segment. However, the ability to identify and service those segments was far beyond the reach of these companies' supply chains. I think in the future, going forward, organizations will need to know their micro segments well, and their supply chains must be able to effectively service them based on the business strategy. I always strongly encourage clients to think of their business in terms of the individual consumers or groups of consumers as opposed to a broad view of the categories. To put in another way, adopting B2C, business to consumer mindset, even in your operation, if your operation predominantly B2B. Then trend 8 goes around technology. People talk a lot about SaaS, software as a service. This is gaining more and more attention. By 2020, we believe that this is going to be the future. It is going to be the case of most organizations going to be using this. So this on the tap as you need type of technology delivery. Then the user have the ability to pay only for the capabilities they use and not have to incur in the large fixed costs and ongoing maintenance, upgrades, infrastructure that sometimes can amount to almost 25 or 30% of the total cost of ownership. The SC software as a service is becoming more and more the trend, and then accelerating more with the rise of the cloud computing, and the concerns around security and safety are diminishing with even more and more adjusted and refined solutions out there in the market. Then trend 9 is the usage of social media to close the feedback process. Let's be honest, social media data is everywhere today. Again, in the durable goods company we worked, we found that 2,000 websites and blogs were discussing their products and service needs on a regular basis. However, say the company, the client, like the majority of the companies out there, didn't systematically use the data to disseminate information about the various different supply chain possibilities, as for example, and then feeding back into the company to have a better, supply chain design in terms of planning, procurement, service, manufacturing, and so forth. This is necessary to provide closed-loop feedback processes that will allow the company to proactively respond to the feedback. So the information is there. It's just how do we take this information, loop it back into the business to create value in the top line and bottom line. So we see that the winning organizations will then be able to receive, process, and act on the data that is being provided to them via the social media. Then finally, trend 10 is that artificial intelligence will be embedded in the mainstream supply chain activities. I would start by saying humans learn by doing, and processes improve as they get leaned out. Yet somehow, every time we build supply chain systems, we begin the process from the ground. Planners go through the same calculations, for example, every time they start. Procurement also goes repeat approximately 35 to 40% of the activities they done in the past on a daily basis. Still, the same holds true for people involved in building logistics and execution systems. So the problem is that when we embark in a supply chain program or initiative, we do have to access all the algorithms that learn and retain this knowledge and experience of the past, not trying to reinvent the wheel. So we contend that the supply chain artificial intelligence will need to be embedded in more effectively automating the mainstream supply chain activities in order to avoid the recreation of the basic stuff every single time. So that's also, I think that's for, in my view, the last supply chain trend. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy.